Former Prince Andrew has been arrested. Why? What's the politics behind his arrest? And there's an increasing military buildup in the Middle East by the United States. Is Trump really going to attack Iran? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Sign up for my free newsletter and links to the guests in the description below. Friday, the 20th of February. This morning, former Prince Andrew was arrested by 6 police officers and he's age 66. Hey, Tom, what does it mean, Tom?
Ooh,
666.
666. We're gonna try that. We're gonna play that game now.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Rich. How are you?
Okay.
It's good to be here again as always. The Prince Andrew thing is really interesting in light of that happened the day before the SCOTUS knocked down the tariffs. Trump is moving large amounts of air and naval assets into Iran's orbit. There is this fight between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump over the Chagos Islands deal and Diego Garcia. And then I'm going to tie all of that together.
Mhm.
And more.
Mhm.
And I'm going to tell you that here's what I think. I think they knew, meaning London, because they own some of our Supreme Court judges, that the tariffs were going to be shot down. Right? It's part of the reason why the markets did not move very much. Because I think everybody's trying to hold their breath, as we talked about in a previous video we did about tariffs, so everybody should listen to. But this is all happening at the same time that we are a week and a half or 2 weeks away from the fallout from the Epstein files, right? A lot of old assets of London have been exposed. I'm not going to waste time again
Like Bill Gates.
going over how much I hate Steve Bannon. Okay, we're not going to do that, but we all know what we're talking about here. Andrew, interestingly enough, was not arrested over the Epstein files, right? He was arrested over some other process stuff. Now, right?
Misconduct in public office.
Okay, fine. Misconduct in public office. But again, not necessarily, for drinking baby's blood or, abusing girls or whatever. There's all sorts of stuff they didn't get him on. They didn't get him on that. So now the question is, what did that mean yesterday? Because somebody pointed out to me this morning, this is the first time a member of the royal family has been arrested in England since 1647. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. That's what I heard this morning. It's salted to taste. It may not be true. Put it through Grok, which will most likely more likely than not lie to you, because most of the AIs lie about everything anymore. They like hallucinating because they're programmed to hallucinate. But why? What would that mean? Now, when it happened yesterday, I like everybody else, like, oh my God, what does this mean? God, what does this mean? And everybody, I have 20 freaking DMs on Twitter, and my Slack server is blowing up, and my phone is blowing up, and everything. I'm like, let's stop. First things first, 48 to 72 hour rule is in effect. So everything we're going to say now is all rampant speculation. Okay? Nothing more, nothing less. Okay? Because we don't know. But that being said, and I know everything you say said before the but doesn't matter, but we're doing speculation. Okay. When it happened yesterday morning, I said, well, it's one of two things. And it's either proof that King Charles is a captured pawn on the board, and this was a, push to keep him from getting out of line in some way, or he's complicit in all of this, and he's trying to shore up Starmer's government by throwing Andrew under the bus and them trying to appease the civilian government that is attempting to attack the crown. No matter what happens here, the crown is either in defensive mode, it's not in offensive mode. And so I was thinking about it in terms of King Charles. I said that, and immediately I got, not only did I get a reply from Ian Burlingame, who apparently is, he's really bad at taking time off.
He really is.
He really is.
Ian,
terrible.
Very naughty. You're probably watching this.
You're probably watching this,
you
right?
should comment.
It's not the end of February yet, dude. And then he texted me at the same time. I'm like, with the same day. So, by the way, if you didn't see my reply, this is what I think is going on. And interestingly enough, And I'm going to tell you what EM said. And then, interestingly enough, I was on the phone with Dexter White this morning, who was like not even aware that the tariffs had been rescinded, that the Supreme Court, because he was busy doing other things. And then he's like, I'm actually more interested in Prince Andrew. And what he said was, independent of EM, he said, this is clearly an attack on the crown and clearly an attack to keep Charles from dissolving Parliament. Because look at what's going on since the Epstein drop. We have a new political party in the UK. You've got Nigel Farage crashing out and trying to destroy what's left of reform, who are technically leading in the polls. So, you've got multiple members of Starmer's government trying to, to having to resign and everything else. You've got Starmer literally openly threatening, Labor MPs that if you push to get rid of me, then I will call for snap election. And clearly the political situation amongst all the parties now is in flux, right? I don't have a good read on Rupert Lowe one way or the other in this Restore Britain thing. I don't know. But what I can tell you is that Starmer's desperate to hold on to power, right? He was put in place to do a particular thing. At the same time, this is all happening. Donald Trump is putting massive pressure on Iran.
Now, Tom, before you go to Iran, I want to add something else to the mix, right?
Sure.
Which you may not be aware of, but one of the things that Starmer's government are committed to doing is replacing the House of Lords with an elected assembly. They're also setting up regional structures. They under the name of devolution, which are actually centralizing, and those two taken together would further undermine the English Constitution. Because you get rid of the House of Lords, you can then populate it with a captured elected body, like what's happened with Parliament and European assemblies all over.
So one of
the things that was trending on X this morning is abolish the monarchy.
Oh, wow. Of course. Because the monarchy is the only thing that can stop this from happening. And what are they trying to do? They're going to get rid of the House of Lords, right?
Yeah.
Who do the House of Lords represent? House of Lords nominally represent the old, they represent they're not directly elected, so they're not representatives of the people per se. They're representatives of other institutions.
Well, there's two types. There's the appointed peers, the life peers, which are appointed by the Prime Minister and Parliament. And then there are hereditary peers, which are the guardians of the Constitution. And since Blair came to power, they've been whittled away, reduced in number. And the other thing that's happened that Blair did was he put in place a Supreme Court, whereas before the House of Lords, the law lords, was the supreme legal body.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it's funny, Rich, you mentioned all this. I think I learned all this during Brexit.
Right.
During when I go, you and I go back long enough that, that you remember me learning more about British politics than any American should ever have to learn anything about, because we're Americans. We should just,
we're in the shadow.
We should just nuke the Cypher orbit, because honestly, we're Americans. We should just nuke the Cypher orbit, and it's the only way to be sure, right?
You stand in EM's shoulders or in the shadow.
Yeah, I do try. So in that respect, isn't it interesting that they did away with the true separation of powers in the United States? The first thing they did when they got their guy installed in the White House in 1913, Woodrow Wilson, we got direct election of senators. So no longer do the states have a direct representation. It's the same thing that they're doing to the House with the House of Lords, right? In that respect. So, it's hilarious actually to watch them do this. They're now making that move in the UK the same way that they made the move 100 years ago against the separation of powers in the United States. Okay, so there's that. So now let's bring Iran into this. What happened the minute, Trump starts putting pressure on Iran? Now, what I think he's doing in putting pressure on Iran is this is not an invasion of Iran. He's not moving ground troops. He's not moving the infrastructure necessary to move a large number of ground troops into theater. He's moved naval and air assets in. This means that he's going to do a bombing campaign, and his job, and I can almost smell what he would want to do here, which is, again, bomb IRGC assets, which are the thing, which in the IRGC is the thing that still allows the theocracy to have power in Iran. And the IRGC and other aspects of Iranian society are controlled by outside forces, namely the British and the French.
I think.
Oh yeah, IRGC is no different than the Muslim Brotherhood. This is, at the end of the day, they're all City of London. So the last big, and so now it's like broaden out. Now think about this. Erdogan turns around and says, if America attacks Iran, Turkey stands ready to move in. Yeah, you think? Because Turkey's, again, Muslim Brotherhood, Erdogan, City of London. Like, once you like make the argument that Erdogan is City of London, effectively, all of his moves over the last 10 years make perfect sense. So what he's doing is sure, he's willing to move the Turkish military in to help Iran. That's a dead giveaway that he's trying to support the IRGC staying in power.
Yeah, Sunni.
Now,
Erdogan as a president of a Sunni nation.
Forget Sunni Shia. Forget all that stuff. This is about raw power. This is not about religion.
Okay. No, but okay. I'm just saying that would seem odd. Especially given
of course,
the
it would seem
Syria
odd because the whole Sunni Shia divide thing is rapidly overplayed. By whom? Okay, and same thing with the Muslims versus Jews and Jews versus Christians, and who's been doing that shit for ever and a day? Oh, I don't know. Let's go back to Europe, right? All the old colonial powers of Europe, we either like to call the High Table, Davos, and/or City of London. Now, let's take this. Now, let's bring this all together. What did Keir Starmer do the other day? Same time as all this was going on, he denied the United States the use of Britain's airbase. And by the way, Macron did the same thing. Not that Trump ever wanted to use any French air bases. He would never have done that. But Macron needed to come in and say something about it. Meaning Trump is pushing on their asset in Iran. And Iran, the IRGC, and the negotiators are crashing out because RT ran a story this morning. RT ran the story this morning that the Iranian negotiator who's been screaming, oh, Trump wants too much and getting rid of all it's saying zero, uranium enrichment. That Trump is unilaterally saying that Iran can't have any uranium enrichment whatsoever. And Witkoff and Jared Kushner, as reported by RT, said that's a fucking lie. We never made that offer. We never put that as a condition on the table. So they're out there lying to gain status that Trump is, a crazy man. Again, all of this is happening at the same time in order to put it on the table. These are desperate people trying desperately to save themselves, and they all and I'm sorry, folks, none of this, not a bit of it, goes back to Tel Aviv. Not a bit. It's all goes back to London. Tel Aviv is not run. Tel Aviv doesn't own the IRGC. Tel Aviv doesn't own the Turkish military. Tel Aviv doesn't own, right? Tel Aviv doesn't own any of these people. So all of these people are coalescing around protecting the IRGC because Trump is doing Israel's bidding. Meanwhile, you have to argue, if that's the case, then then that means that by definition, anybody who's working against Trump transitively, because you have to realize at this point, there's one group against Donald Trump. Because it ain't the Russians, it ain't the Chinese, and guess what? That means that the Jews must run the Supreme Court too, right? No, because that makes no sense, because I thought Trump worked for the Jews. The cognitive dissonance over all of this shit is so off the charts, it's not funny. You cannot anymore make the argument that when you say City of London, it's code for the Jews. It's not. There's
No.
overlap, absolutely, but it's not the same group. And the events of the last 10 days prove that more than anything.
Well, hold on, Tom. Hold on. Hold on.
I
No,
know
what it proves.
you're not gonna do a fake pushback against me. I know. Go for it.
Damn, rumbled before my fake pushback. The reason why Starmer said no to the United States using the Chagos Islands in order to bomb Iran is because Starmer is a committed anti-war prime minister. He doesn't want people being. was that a really poor pushback?
I'm sorry. So, who showed up and tried to crash through the Russian-Ukraine peace talks?
Yeah.
And Zelensky comes out this morning and says, "Prepare for 3
You
more
don't need
years
to
of
say
war."
anything.
I know.
I couldn't carry it off. I
I know
couldn't.
you
But
could.
by
I
the
know
way,
you
no
could. You tried.
taxforwar.com if you're in the UK.
If you, I will give you credit for at least trying, Rich. That was rich, dude. Like, all
But why
puns
not?
intended, of
Hey,
course.
he's he's
Um,
he's had an
no,
epiphany.
so no, the Chagos Island thing. Have you noticed how the British press is talking about Trump in the Chagos Islands? They keep saying Trump backtracks on his support for Starmer selling the Chagos Islands. He was never in favor of this. I saw it from multiple sources. The British media was out there tweeting multiple sources within the so from the Daily Mail to GB News to this one to that one, GB Politics, all these stupid Twitter accounts and all of these. They were all using the phrase Trump backtracks on Chagos.
But he
He
never
was
supported it.
never in favor of them selling of him giving the Chagos Islands to Mauritius. Never.
Okay.
Ever. There's no way that Trump would give up Diego Garcia. Are you out of your freaking minds?
Yeah, what's behind this deal? Because David Curtin, leader of the Heritage Party, whom I interviewed today, because I've not really followed it. So it would be the equivalent of, I'm going to give you, you live a few miles away, right? I'm going to let you have my garden. I'm going to give you money for it. And then this little bit of the garden, I'm going to pay you that I'd like to keep using. So I'm going to pay you rent. That's what he's doing with the Chagos Islands. He's giving it away, paying money for it to be, you can have some money as well. Oh, and I'd like to rent a little bit for 99 years.
It's the same stupid crap that they did with Hong Kong. Like, no, he's trying to sell it out from underneath the United States. He's trying to get us out of there. And we're not giving up Diego Garcia. Because if we give up Diego Garcia, then we have no force projection ability to end their bullshit in the Middle East.
Right. But what about the other bases in Qatar and other places in the Middle East? They got bases.
But Diego Garcia is a very, very important. It's more important than Bahrain. And then also something else that came up this morning. Nouri al-Maliki in Iraq, also a Zaporozhian plant, not standing for re-election, or is not standing for is in Iraq. So Iraq is fixing itself as well. This is existential to what's left of Britain's plans here. So I think everybody should get prepared that Trump is going to bomb Iran if Iran does not finally stop listening to the Europeans who think that they can just run out the clock on him. They are negotiating with this. They're doing the exact same kind of bullshit negotiations. They come a step forward and then drag it out for 3 more months. And then Trump's like, fuck you. I'm going to bomb all of your military assets that support your shitty regime. I'm bombing them out of existence. And I'm going to let the Iranian people decide. It's going to be the exact same situation as in Venezuela, except this time, supposed to using Delta Force to go in and nab Maduro, kill all the Cuban guards that were surrounding him. It's going to be a bigger operation, but it's still going to be the same kind of targeted operation. I absolutely am convinced of this now. And I understand why he would be doing it. It's because he doesn't actually, again, I'm going to go back to something. I don't know if you ever spoke to Joaquin Flores about this particular angle. But because I know you and Joaquin talk, I know you and Joaquin talk all the time. But the podcast I did with Joaquin Flores a couple of months ago, Joaquin made the point about Iran, saying that the theocracy is the thin icing on top of the bureaucratic cake, or the technocratic cake, and that there's all these beautiful protocols, and the Iranian government is its own thing, and the theocracy only sits on top. So you can remove the theocracy, and you will not remove 90% of the institutional, organizational, imperative that exists within Iranian society. Meaning, Iranian society will not collapse into sectarian violence and war and everything else. What will happen is the IRGC will go away, and the Iranian military, the regular Iranian military, will then be empowered to keep, and the bureaucracy will exist, and it will be a lot less violent and bloody than one would expect, because Trump's not going in there to create chaos. He's going in there to end the chaos, the institutional infighting.
Okay, so
Do you see the difference? But that will then, of course, be just one last thing, and that will, of course, be played out in the media, and the British media controlled media will absolutely say the exact opposite of the truth, because they don't know how to speak the truth. These people, all they know how to do is lie.
Yeah. Okay, so what is it that Trump wants? He wants the British and the French out, and for the Iranian people to run their own affairs as they see fit, without the influence of the City of London.
So, well, and again, and everybody wants this, because the Russians want the Trans-Caspian corridor, part of the international north-south transport corridor, which bypasses the Red Sea, the Black Sea, which bypasses all the British choke points, and and all the reasons that they want Ukraine and all this other crap. Right, that bypasses that. It will absolutely weaken Aliyev in Azerbaijan, who's also another British asset. Okay, same thing with Pashinyan in Armenia. That's a Soros asset, right? So all of those guys will start to fall. Erdogan will also be on thin ice. So, of course, he would never want this to happen. So he would probably go in and try and fight the Iranian army at that point. And then that would be the fun part, when, the United States has to start, attacking the freaking Turkish armor.
Oh, Tom, what a mess. Actually,
it's a mess that's cleaning itself up. It's a classic Ian Berlin game. Get the Devil's Legions off the board by killing them all. Okay. And so that you have localized conflicts as opposed to World War III. Okay, because the Russians will stay out of this, because, again, like I said, they want the Trans-Caspian trade corridor. The Chinese will stay out of it because they want Belt and Road, and they're going to be willing to pay full price now for Iranian sour crude, medium and heavy sour crude, if they can get, if they can get rid of all this nonsense in the Middle East, right? Because it's just better for their business, and that gives them safer access to any of the money that they've invested in Africa, yada yada yada. Iran gets to come out of geopolitical baby jail, and they get to be a normal country. And Trump has offered them, and literally, if you look at the leaked parts of the negotiations, Trump is offering them a massive trade and investment deal as the sweetener to get them to give up this bullshit. This bullshit acts as a resistance strategy put in place by the British and the French in order for them to control and set the Middle East against each other. And if that fixes itself, now we can start thinking about Ukraine. Why do you think they're okay? So this is why Ukraine.
Before we get to Ukraine, right?
We almost don't need to go to Ukraine, but everybody can see that if you fix Iran, it helps to fix Ukraine. Because what else did we hear this week that got thrown out there as a talking point? Salted to taste. I don't care that Trump offered Putin a $12 trillion friggin' trade and investment deal. You don't think that's true?
Yeah, that's a big sweetener. That's a
because
big sweetener.
All of that fits in with Trump's desire to get rid of all the old geopolitical hotspots. It's something he pointed out in his Truth Social post about the tariffs today that a lot of people missed. That the Supreme Court, he said that the Supreme Court doesn't think that tariffs aren't vital to national security. I stopped 5 of the 8 wars by threatening people with tariffs. Mm-hmm. I stopped 5 wars with tariff threats alone. Done. And you want to take that away from me? And you don't think that that's national security?
Yeah. Yeah, much better than starting wars. But this...
It's much better than bombing people. No one wants to bomb people.
But
the Iranians are making their own bed if they get bombed, is what he's arguing.
Okay, but Iran's going to block the Strait of Hormuz. The price of oil will go through the roof. They'll bomb Israel.
They can try. Yeah, they make a lot of noise. The Iranians are really good at propaganda, by the way. I used to fall for it, and the reason that I bring this up now is because, and I say it the way I do, is because the Iranians have made this threat forever and a day, and every time they get into a confrontation with the United States, somehow it never happens. We've moved so much armor, so much air and naval power into that area. I'm sorry, but Iran's navy. You worry about Iran's ballistic missiles. Moreover, something else I want you to think about, and this is something I've been chatting about. I've been chatting about with various people. We've game planning some stuff out. I think for once we're finding out that Trump is like, dude, we paid for all this like really advanced Star Wars shit, freaking hardware. Why are we holding it in reserve? Why aren't we using it? I think we're going to find out real quick that the United States has I hate to use the term wonder weapons, but in the context of Patton and World War II and all that. God, I don't see the wonder in them. No, nothing is affirmed, no glory, no battle, no sting of, nothing is, no one, no. I honestly think, and I honestly think, what I'll say is there is a greater percentage possibility that we're going to use that stuff and let Iran and everybody else know, oh, by the way, this is the stuff we have. See, engagements like this are usually a big game between the big powers of how much do they have to let the other guy know that they actually have and how effective it is. Like that's another layer to actual kinetic warfare that is lost on so many people because there's always that game. And then, and again, and that's always in the MI6 style calculus and the CIA style calculus, the intelligence asset wargamer style analysis of as they game out how they craft their operations, because the United States is never going to let anybody know that they have this weapon, so that means that they're not going to use it, therefore we can do this, and then everything becomes a friggin' Tom Clancy or John le Carré novel, right? And if Trump comes in wielding his big sword that says Gordian on it, and he comes in, so his
discombobulator
is not Cleaver with the word Gordian written on it, and goes, nope, fuck that. Use all the Star Wars shit. If that is, I'm not saying it's true, folks. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you have to actually think that it could be true. Because too many people are trapped in that mindset of what I just described. And that's the general One Sigma thinking on Capitol Hill, in GCHQ, at 10 Downing Street, at NATO headquarters, in Tehran, in Tel Aviv, blah, 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 everywhere around the world. But the only people who really know what Trump is willing to actually do are the ones that have been on the other side of what he's actually done. And if you want an honest opinion as to why the Russians always seem to walk away whenever the United States decides to do its thing, or the Chinese, I just gave you a very plausible argument as to why.
Yeah, because
that maybe Trump for once isn't lying for strategic effect. He's actually telling you the truth, but because he lies so effectively on a regular basis, you never know if he's telling the truth or not until he puts the slap down on you. And that is very, very, very effective statecraft. And I'm sorry if it doesn't play by Queensberry fucking rules.
Yep. And Trump doesn't do that. And Tom, you don't even do analysis and commentary by regular rules.
No,
thank you so much. Thank you. Look forward to having you on again. This is Rich and Tom
signing out. Have a great weekend, Rich.
All the best. Bye-bye.